If you think unidentified flying objects, unidentified aerial phenomena, UFOs or UAPs are a modern occurrence, think again. There have been reported sightings of this nature for thousands of years, including celestial events painted on walls of caves. While many of these occurrences can be explained by astronomy as asteroids, eclipses, the northern lights, and other celestial objects, there exist accounts which to this day cannot be easily explained. So, what did these medieval people actually see? Fortunately, at a time when modern technology was still centuries into the future, we have physical representations for a few of these events. Contained in the beautiful artistry of certain medieval illustrations and paintings are unidentified flying objects that defy conclusive explanation. In fact, these depictions are creating great controversy, challenging viewers to notice and wonder. We shall present 4 remarkable occurrences and depictions which will make you question if UFOs were witnessed in medieval times. Nuremberg, modern-day Germany, April 14, 1561. At sunrise in this city of the Holy Roman Empire, the first of 2 similar and astounding accounts of widespread European UFO sightings occurred. During this particular mass sighting, witnesses report hundreds of celestial objects shaped like cylinders and spheres engaged in aerial combat from out of the sun. Another astounding feature were blood-red streaks in the sky above these city residents. Suddenly, at the height of battle, one large black triangle reportedly fell from the sky, smashing to the ground in an area just outside of Nuremberg. This was followed by other spheres smashing into the ground below, creating clouds of smoke. Here is a partial translated description from a broadsheet at that time. These all started to fight among themselves, so that the globes, which were first in the sun, flew out to the ones standing on both sides. Thereafter the globes standing outside the sun, in the small and large rods, flew into the sun. Besides, the globes flew back and forth among themselves and fought vehemently with each other for over an hour. And when the conflict in and again out of the sun was most intense, they became fatigued to such an extent that they all, as said above, fell from the sun down upon the earth as if they all burned, and then they wasted away on the earth with immense smoke. Not only was this incident reported in the broadsheet paper, though an actual woodcut engraving by noted engraver Hans Glaser, also a resident of Nuremberg, shows the occurrence in graphic detail. Despite hundreds of people witnessing this event firsthand, some skeptics centuries later have speculated this event was none other than a sundog apparition. A sundog is an atmospheric optical phenomenon consisting of a bright spot on one or both sides of the sun. Obviously, this does not explain hundreds of black and red shapes in the sky above Nuremberg that morning, let alone any of the other occurrences witnessed by hundreds. Basel, modern-day Switzerland, July and August 1566. Amazingly, during this time period, a sky spectacle similar to the mass sighting of 1561 AD occurred in Basel, located just 200 miles southwest of Nuremberg. Once again, witnesses report numerous black and red shapes engaged in sky combat overhead. This occurred over a period of several sunrises and sunsets. One source gives the dates as July 27th, 28th, and August 7th, 1566 AD. Here is part of a translated quote from a broadsheet at that time describing these occurrences. At the dawn of August the 7th, we saw large black spheres coming in and going with great speed and precision before the sun and chattered as if they led a fight. Many of them were fiery red and soon crumbled and then extinguished. Similar to the Nuremberg incident, modern-day researchers can offer no conclusive explanation beyond speculations like mass hysteria. Some point to the fact that in both cases these events were thought to be a miracle or warnings from God. However, at a time when sewers and indoor plumbing were beyond explanation, let alone modern technology, how else would a 16th century person describe these celestial events? The Miracle of the Snow, 1428 to 1432 AD. Here is one of the most astonishing paintings from medieval times which shows unexplained celestial objects, its theme being a legendary August snowfall in 4th century Rome. Hovering in the clouds above, it seems Jesus and Mary are watching an event, though behind them are numerous floating objects in the shape of discs. Some skeptics say these are just lenticular clouds, though the exacting detail used by this artist discounts such a simplistic explanation. To modern eyes, this appears a classic interpretation of unidentified aerial phenomena. The Madonna with Saint Giovannino, 15th century AD. This fascinating medieval painting is commonly attributed to Domenico Ghirlandaio, though it has also been attributed to Jacopo da Solaio and Sebastiano Menardi. Researchers and viewers alike have focused great attention on the airborne unidentified object in the top right corner, looking behind Madonna's shoulder. Even in the painting, a man's gaze is captivated by this object, his dog clearly upset by its presence. Some speculate that Madonna appears to shield an infant Jesus and St. John from the presence of this unidentified object. Is it just religious symbolism of celestial events or much more? Visit the Palazzo Vecchio in Florence, where it is currently located, and judge for yourself. During the 9th century in medieval Europe, empires, kingdoms, and dynasties were constantly changing within a period of great turmoil. While the continent raged with political strife, including power struggles for the papal seat, a great trial was held in the year 897 AD. To this day, the Dead Pope trial is famous for a number of reasons. At that time, Pope Stephen VI ordered one of the strangest trials in history, the Cadaver Synod. The accused arrived from St. Peter's Basilica to answer charges of deep corruption and moral contempt. Except there was one problem. No matter how gruesome the threat of punishment for these charges, the defendant would not speak one word in their own defense. In fact, they had not spoken a sentence to anyone in over 7 months. Hello everyone, my name is Craig, host of Medieval to Modern. We feature fascinating information from civilization's medieval ages. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to help grow this channel. As the 9th century progressed, the popes of Rome were facing increased danger as political struggles placed them in vulnerable situations. Popes during this period were very aware of their fragile position, realizing they desperately needed money and powerful support to continue carrying out important church duties. Therefore, they looked for allies and assistance in the secular world to accomplish their aims and safeguard the church's very existence. However, despite these major challenges, there were a few people that seemed destined to guide the church in these challenging times. One was named Bishop Formosus of Porto Santa Rufina, who came to his position during 864 AD. In the decade of the 860s, this bishop was called upon to handle various challenging church assignments by the Pope, which he completed each time with success. To a growing number of people, it appeared Bishop Formosus, born around 816 AD, would be a leading candidate when the next Pope was selected. Though in this volatile environment, nothing could be assumed, especially the powerful position of Pope. Then, in the year 872 AD, the time to decide a new Pope had arrived. Though to the shock of many, this new church leader would be Pope John VIII. This event was not the only concern for an overlooked Bishop Formosus. To his dismay, he had the added misfortune of backing a losing candidate for the crown of Holy Roman Emperor. Thus, it was only a matter of time before the new Pope, who seen Bishop Formosus as a formidable rival, moved to consolidate his power. In the year 876 AD, Pope John VIII brought various violations of church law against Bishop Formosus, including, quote, conspiring with certain iniquitous men and women for the destruction of the papal see, end of quote. By this time, the bishop had already fled Rome in the prior year of 875. In his absence, the charges were successful, and the bishop was defrocked and excommunicated. One would believe that Bishop Formosus would have faded into the pages of history after this dramatic judgment, though nothing could be further from the truth. Considering the volatile workings of the papacy, nothing was certain. Pope John VIII would be the latest victim of this unending power struggle when he was assassinated in December 882 AD. His cause of death was bludgeoning by a hammer blow to the head by his own clerics. Fortunately for Bishop Formosus, the next pope was not as threatened by him as was Pope John VIII. As a result, Pope Neronus I returned Bishop Formosus to practice at his old diocese in Rome. Some years later, what was unimaginable when he was defrocked by Pope John VIII became reality. On October 6, 891, Bishop Formosus was the first previously excommunicated person to become Pope of the Church. When Pope Formosus obtained this position, he continued to hold his strong opinions on who should be Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. Pope Formosus did not trust the co-emperors at that time and contacted Arnulf of Carinthia in 893 AD to invade Rome and seize the imperial crown. Unfortunately for him, this first attempt to depose Guy III Spoleto and his son Lambert failed, though Guy III died shortly thereafter. Nevertheless, Pope Formosus still did not trust Lambert, so in 895 he asked once more for Arnulf of Carinthia to invade and seize the emperor's crown. Then, with the supportive persuasion of Pope Formosus, Arnulf of Carinthia launched a second campaign, capturing Rome in early 896 AD. Soon after, Pope Formosus crowned Arnulf of Carinthia as Holy Roman Emperor. Then, tragedy struck when Pope Formosus died from a stroke or possibly poisoning on April 4, 896. With no Frankish army of Arnulf present, Lambert of Spoleto entered Rome to reconfirm his title as Holy Roman Emperor. Recently, various researchers feel it was Guy IV of Spoleto, cousin of Lambert, whose aggression in other parts of Italy made Pope Formosus wary and seek assistance from Arnulf of Carinthia. In their view, Pope Formosus' actions to protect Rome and the papacy from Guy IV and his aggression would have strained his relationship with Lambert. Nevertheless, both Guy IV and Lambert, along with Lambert's mother Agiltrude, entered Rome in January 897 AD for the imperial crown. It was also in January of 897 AD that Pope Stephen VI ordered the corpse of the deceased Pope Formosus exhumed and dressed in papal vestments and crown to stand trial. This gruesome event is known as the Cadaver Synod or Dead Pope Trial. Here, the corpse of Pope Formosus was charged with perjury, holding the position of bishop in 2 places against church canon law, and illegally holding his papacy position. A synod is an ecclesiastical council called to deal with issues related to faith or disciplinary matters. As unnerving an act this was, and with ongoing questions concerning his mental stability, Pope Stephen VI had an ultimate objective. He wanted to make acts established under Pope Formosus obsolete and consolidate his power in the papacy. Pope Stephen VI even appointed himself prosecutor at this trial, which was held in Rome's Basilica of St. John Lateran. There, he would unleash his deep hatred of Pope Formosus. The powerful House of Spoleto, with Emperor Lambert from that same family, also appears to have been motivated to seek revenge for Pope Formosus' past actions. They are presumed to have pressured the new pope to act out their macabre wishes by holding the Dead Pope trial. Pope Stephen VI did not need too much persuasion, for he would gain additional benefit when Pope Formosus was found guilty. If he could nullify Pope Formosus' acts, he would not be guilty of one of the major charges he made against Pope Formosus, which was being a bishop in 2 places at the same time. Since the defendant was a corpse, an 18-year-old deacon who crouched behind the deceased pope was appointed to answer any questions. The enraged and unstable Pope Stephen VI shouted charges, insults, and accusations at the corpse, while the unnerved council watched on in silent fear. During this frightening presentation, he even asked the corpse why it, quote, usurped the universal Roman see in such a spirit of ambition, end quote. As one could imagine, the departed Bishop Formosus was found guilty by this papal court and removed from the list of popes. His punishment included losing his papacy and the severing of 3 consecration fingers on his right hand. Pope Formosus' acts and ordinances were made null and void, though an ominous sign occurred during this trial, which today some people say meant the matter was still unsettled. An earthquake shook the Basilica during the Dead Pope trial, causing some damage to part of its structure. After leaving the burial vault of St. Peter's Basilica, twice more his body was moved. First, Pope Formosus was buried in a commoner's grave reserved for the burial of foreigners outside of church lands. A few days later, on orders again from Pope Stephen VI, it was exhumed, weighted down, and tossed into Italy's Tiber River, though even this horrific fate was not the last act in this bizarre story. During the period following its terrible dumping, the body of Bishop Formosus washed ashore, where it was recognized and recovered by sympathetic monks. According to contemporary accounts, it soon began performing feats described as miracles. In what some may view as revenge from the grave, Pope Stephen VI was removed as pope a few months later due to the people's outrage at his conduct and a successful purge by bishops loyal to Pope Formosus. In August 897 AD, Pope Stephen VI was strangled to death while in prison. After this period, Pope Formosus was reburied in St. Peter's Basilica with full vestments. In 898 AD, Pope John IX prohibited any future trials of a dead pope by decree. However, in 904 AD, one of the people involved in this bizarre trial of the Cadaver Synod as a co-judge became pope. Pope Sergius III overturned both Pope John IX and Pope Theodore II's decisions and found Pope Formosus guilty once again. Nevertheless, Pope Formosus and acts during his papacy were later reinstated, as the Church recognized Pope Sergius III's actions as politically motivated. Today, the body of Pope Formosus is interred at St. Peter's Basilica. Thank you for supporting us at Medieval to Modern. Please be sure to watch our next episode, or one shown at the end of this video. Also be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and spread the word about this channel so we can create more exciting content. I wish you good tidings as we remember that sharing knowledge has been a noble deed throughout the ages.